The Titans had their most complete performance of the season in their Week 11 win over Green Bay, and this game has shifted my outlook for the Titans season. Heading into the year, and especially after the blowout against Buffalo, I just wasn't sold on this offense to be dynamic enough to make noise in the playoffs. Obviously, with the AFC South being so bad, they always had a good chance to make the postseason, but I viewed the Titans as a scrappy defensive-led team that was most likely going to get bounced in the first round. But now that I've seen evidence of what this offense could look like, with Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips getting healthy, Ryan Tannehill performing at a high level, and the offensive line taking some steps forward, I think Tennessee's right back in the same sort of range or tier that they were in the last couple seasons. These are my player grades for Week 11, and before we get into individual performances, I want to quickly explain how I come up with these grades and what they mean. My goal with these is to highlight who had really good and really bad performances, and for me, a C is average. I think a lot of people are used to seeing C pluses and C's as like a bad grade, but it doesn't mean that at all. Derrick Henry, for example, gets a C plus for this week. He had a really nice run after the catch on this slip screen, and he wasn't that efficient running the ball, but the offensive line just didn't give him much room, and then he had one bad rep in pass protection, so to me, that's a slightly above average performance, which is a C+. Ryan Tannehill had his best performance of the season, 4 big time throws according to PFF, which is the most that he's had since week 2 of last year against the Seahawks. This first pass to Treylon Burks is a perfect example of throwing someone open. A lot of quarterbacks here would throw this flat and put it out towards the sideline, but if the defensive back turned around, he has underneath leverage and it would probably be an interception. So Tannehill basically just splits the hashes and leads Treylon Burks down the field. And then another dime right here to Austin Hooper. He holds the safety with his eyes and then puts it on him with perfect ball placement. Treylon Burks also gets an A-, and this was a breakout game for him. 8 targets, 7 receptions, and 111 yards. And I was happy to see this for Treylon Burks. He's had a really unlucky rookie season so far. Obviously the turf toe injury, but even just looking at individual plays throughout the season, he had that terrible holding call on the Derrick Henry touchdown run against Indianapolis. He got tackled on that go ball against the Giants that probably would have been a big gain. So this was great for his confidence, but also for the Titans coaching staff to build that trust that they can feature him in the game plan more. Through the first 11 weeks, Treylon Burks ranks 7th among wide receivers in yards per route run against man coverage, so he's a player whose stock is on the rise. C+ for Chigakonkwo, great adjustment to this slot fade, and really good job by Ryan Tannehill getting it up there under pressure. And Jeff Swaim gets a D. You can essentially just look at Jeff Swaim's grade every week as a run blocking grade because that's really all they ask him to do, and he was getting pushed around in this game. The offensive line I thought was pretty good in pass protection and really bad blocking the run. The Titans offensive line trips over each other in run blocking more than I've seen from any other team this year. Nate Davis and NPF especially just do not have good chemistry. They get their feet tangled up so much and it usually results in a lot of traffic at the line of scrimmage. When they have a lead blocker in, that only compounds the issue, and a running back like Derrick Henry needs to be kept clean behind the line of scrimmage. He's just not a shifty player that can bounce around and avoid all that traffic. We've seen 2 starts from Dylan Radins, and I've been really impressed by his pass protection, especially his hand usage. He's proactive and accurate landing his punch, really good footwork throughout the rush. I think being on the inside and not having all that space in the alley that he's responsible for makes him a lot more comfortable and under control. So looking forward to the future, I'm way more optimistic about Dylan Radins finding a role on this team today than I was 7 weeks ago. And yeah, I just really can't say enough good things about his pass protection over these 2 starts. As a run blocker though, he's borderline terrible. He really struggles with reach blocks, especially against defensive linemen that have any sort of length. He doesn't show the explosiveness or agility that I saw in his college tape when he's blocking at the second level. He has a really hard time sealing off linebackers that aren't just sort of floating aimlessly out in the open field. And that's probably something that Mike Vrabel has more of a problem with than I do. If Dylan Radins can be a consistent pass blocker and you've got good run blockers at the other 4 offensive line spots, I would be fine with him at left guard. The Titans defense has been so impressive after week 2, and they're extremely well coached across the board. I will say the last 2 games have been a bit misleading from a numbers standpoint. They've been helped by Russell Wilson not seeing a lot of open receivers and Aaron Rodgers being as inaccurate as I've ever seen him. So the idea that Mike Vrabel can just plug anyone he finds off the street into the secondary and they're gonna have success is sort of a mirage in my opinion. The Titans execute the next man up mentality as well as any team in the NFL, but I still think it's crucial that they start to get healthy and reverse the injury trend. Specifically at safety, Amani Hooker's a really important player to get back. Joshua Kalu has performed admirably, but in my opinion, he's a damn waiting to break. And Andrew Adams has been a complete revelation, but he is kind of limited as a player. David Long is a stud. He gets an A-. Through 11 weeks, he's PFF's second highest graded linebacker in run defense, and what he's given the Titans as a pass rusher I think has gone under the radar. In his first 3 seasons, he had 17 pressures. He has 17 pressures already this year, and he just puts some of the craziest moves on people, especially for someone of his size. He just flies in there like a maniac and dices up whoever's trying to block him. I do have to give Christian Fulton an F. He's been really good this season, but he gave up 2 touchdowns in this game. I think he's solidifying himself as a low-end number 1, high-end number 2 corner. I personally think from the eye test that he plays better than like the PFF grades or statistics would show. I thought Roger McCreary's first 4 or 5 weeks were pretty bad, but he's really settled in, and we'll see how he develops, but I think at worst he's going to be an above average corner. Kind of similar to Christian Fulton, he might not have the high-end athletic traits to become a true number 1 lockdown guy, but this looks like a hit in the second round, and he stays healthy, which is huge for this team. And then Trey Avery gets an A+, 4 targets, 1 reception for -1 yards, and 2 pass breakups. He was a major part of the Titans closing out this win, and Trey Avery's an interesting player. I'll put this graphic up on the screen. This is basically just where Trey Avery ranked in his final year of college and a bunch of key defensive back statistics. He was objectively the worst cornerback in college football last year, but he has some high-end athletic traits. 8.77 relative athletic score, 4.45 in the 40, 38-inch vertical, and then elite agility testing. So he's kind of just a blank canvas for the Titans to develop. The fact that they trusted him in week 2 to cover Stephon Diggs is number 1, a little questionable, but number 2, it means that he was probably showing some good things in training camp. So Trey Avery's a player to keep an eye on. I think when Tennessee starts getting to the bottom of their depth chart in the secondary, I would rather see him get more opportunities than someone like Greg Maben, for example. Sort of a quiet game from the defensive line. DeMarcus Walker had a really good performance, but Jeffrey Simmons wasn't at 100% and he was getting doubled a ton. Danico Autry being out for a few weeks is a major blow to the pass rush because outside of Jeffrey Simmons, Autry's really the only player that can consistently win one-on-ones. They have a lot of solid pass rushers in their rotation, but they're at their best when they're cleaning up pressure that other people create. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments any players or teams that you'd like me to cover.